Well, hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
Dave Candido.
And we have come back once again with something way different than probably what anybody was thinking we were going to do. Probably everybody thought, like, oh, they're going to go with Coffin Joe 3 right off the bat.
Embodiment of Evil.
Yeah, and that's an odd one. It's not the easiest to find. If you want it, it's like $25 on like Blu-ray or whatever. Like, you know, it's like we'll get around to it. Don't get me wrong. I want to support the Coffin Joe legacy and go on with the third one. But I'm like, we'll get back to that one.
We got to put the nail in that coffin.
Yeah, we do. We have to. Well, we have to know what's 2008 Coffin Joe like. That's the big question, you know. But instead, we decided to go with actually a movie that I really enjoyed, especially when it came out back in the day. But is good old The Beaver right here. Jodie Foster's. I'm getting like a light shine there. Yeah, it's my DVD Blockbuster case one from back in the day. But Jodie Foster's directing it here, also starring in it with Mel Gibson. And Mel Gibson, it's such a great movie of craziness. It's funny because, like, if you read different descriptions, some people will be like, man, this movie was sad and
it's really sad, or it's hilarious.
Or it's like, I see this movie, I think it's fucking hilarious by far. I mean, I'll even just, there's a little description.
Right up there with Team America, you know?
Yeah, I was laughing the whole way through. Like, suicide has never been funnier. You know, you find Mel Gibson in here, and you're like you could believe it. It's just like, I don't know, it's charming and so on, but
it's kind of another movie. It kind of made me think of is Father of the Year. I don't know if you've seen that with Robin Williams.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be a funny movie, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, but it comes from Bobcat Goldthwait, and he's just an amazing director. You know, that's also one too. You're like, I didn't expect I'd see Robin Williams just full on naked too.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, but I mostly never forgot about that. It was like, wow, that was unexpected. You know,
yeah, something people shouldn't forget about, I guess, but I did.
It's like Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel loves to get naked in movies, and the older he gets, he never stops getting naked. You know,
in fact, he's just even more naked.
Yeah, he just gets more naked, you know, as time is going on. You know, he finds a way. He's like, write me in a sex scene here, Scorsese. I need one. What are you going to have sex with? I don't care. I can fuck anything. Just give me full frontal nudity.
No watermelons. That's bullshit. You know,
that's fucking weird. You get the little seeds stuck in there and everything like that.
That's bizarre.
But yeah, The Beaver, I'm just going to read this little synopsis. This kind of gives you an idea what the hell this is if you have no idea. Because this movie kind of did come and go.
So far, they're just like, these guys are kind of weird.
Yeah, they're fucking weird. Like, I don't know. They're like, I thought we were getting into some sad, you know, dramatic experience about a guy going through depression and trying to make it out, you know. And
he's over here laughing so hard at mental illness that he's throwing up. You know?
But it's fucking hilarious. But here it is. You got Walter Black, a depressed executive who hits rock bottom when his wife kicks him out of the house. At his lowest point, he begins to use the Beaver hand puppet to communicate with people and overcome his issues.
Yeah, it really is. It really is a fantastic movie. And I remember the first time I saw it was, I think it was not long after it came out, but I think I saw it on a streaming platform or something. And just thinking like the Beaver. And of course, my first thought was, that's probably kind of funny, you know, and I'm watching, I'm like, this is sad as shit. But, you know, there's a lot of things that could resonate with a person in that movie, but then a lot of it, you're just like, dude, this is outrageous. This is really sad, but also really comical. And there's just, it doesn't end. It only stops being funny, I would say, up until like the climax. And then it's really not funny anymore. And dark humor, I guess.
Yeah, because it starts to go dark almost humor. Like full Evil Dead at some point.
Kind of. And the, what the hell is it? What's hilarious is the part that really, you know, you've got your setting and everything. That's another thing too. Aside from the plot, aside from the feels, aside from everything, they do a really good job. Whoever directed this. Oh, you said
Jodie Foster. No. Bobcat Goldthwait was
well, that was
Grace's dad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, Jodie Foster actually directs this, so which is pretty cool.
But she did a phenomenal job giving you like the backstory, the setting, and the premise, you know, where they're at, where he's at, what's going to happen from there. I forget the different stages of a film or of a story, but with the build up all the way to the climax, the resolution, everything, it was done perfectly. But where he decides, as you were saying, he's super depressed, leaves the house. I think this is all within the first like 10 minutes of the movie. He goes
gets kicked out.
Yeah, he goes to a hotel and throws away a lot of his crap. And it's really odd why he picks up this puppet out of the trash. Like that's one thing I would have loved to have understood or known, like what was going through his head, because he hadn't started drinking yet, at least not that you know of, for the night. You know, it's like interesting. Why did you pull the beaver back out of the trash? Is that something in his subconscious that's already started working? You know, like I guess that's it, because otherwise you're just like, this guy's fucking weird.
Yeah, exactly. He finds this beaver, and then also too, out of all the stuff, because isn't that beaver initially in the back of his car and like the trunk? It's not like, or did he find it in the trash?
It was in his trunk, and he grabbed all that crap out, threw it in a dumpster, and then he goes to turn away. And he's like, you know, it's like, you know, out of all this stuff, I'm gonna take that dirty, nasty beaver.
Yeah. Wherever this came from, give me the beaver and whatnot. And
goes on a bender. A ton of booze, and then tries to off himself. And of course, the beaver didn't save his life. It's his own weird psyche. But of course, he doesn't find that out until the next day.
No. Well, and even when he tries to take his own life, it still finds a way to make it comical. He's trying to hang himself in the shower stall, and he ties him up with his, he takes his tie and hangs him up there and everything like that. And then it breaks and falls on him and stuff. And whoever did that stunt, like that looked painful as all can be. That's all I got to say. Like falling in a bathroom is, there's no good objects to fall on in there. But yeah, it's like
it can happen in a bathroom, and that's definitely one of them.
That's definitely, But just the whole suicide. Yet it's sad. Yet it's also funny. It reminds me the same way like The Wrestler is, because that's about the same era as this.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Dude, that one's so good, and that's one of those movies. I remember when that movie.
I was just looking into it.
I literally watched that movie like 7 times. Like I bought it, I saw it in theaters, I bought it on DVD, and I watched it like a crap ton. And I remember somebody's like, "How do you watch that movie so many times? It was so sad." I'm like, it's weird. Sometimes I find really sad movies like they make me feel really inspired, I guess. And then I also like there's a bunch of funny shit in The Wrestler that like maybe it's not intentional, but like I think it's hilarious, And then it's the same way I sort of felt about. Did you ever see Black Swan?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because that's the same director. Right?
I feel kind of funny that I had to really emphasize, like, yes, of course I've seen that.
Of course I saw it. I am the Black Swan deep down inside. Well, Darren Aronofsky, I don't know why, we had this bit a long time ago, me and Ryan, where we're like, imagine if for some reason, like, Mickey Rourke and Natalie Portman switched roles in movies, but they acted identically the same. So it's big buff Mickey Rourke. He's literally in Black Swan doing all the ballet stuff, but nobody questions it. Nobody questions it's Mickey Rourke. He just plays it just exactly how it is. He even has that weird lesbian scene, but it's just like, oh, what's going on? And then same thing with Natalie Portman, just, she's a big wrestler walking around, but it's just Natalie Portman.
And he's got the same makeup that he did in Sin City.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I found that hilarious. But That's how I feel the Beaver sort of is it's like in that same kind of category where I know some people would watch this and they would go like, what is funny about this movie?
Yeah.
It's the same. I remember that happened to me once when the Clint Eastwood movie Gran Torino. And I remember there was
I love that movie too.
She was at college or something like that. Might have been like one of the film school things. And I remember she was like, oh, I'm going to go watch Gran Torino. I'm like, or she's like, I watched Gran Torino last night. I'm like, wasn't that the funniest movie you've ever seen? And she just looks at me with the most stern look and goes, what was funny about that movie?
Like, are you a mom?
I remember being in the cinema and like dying of laughter where it just hurt. You know what I mean? It's like just from the beginning of that movie, Clint Eastwood's just doing the... He sees his granddaughter there and she's all dressed all kind of hoary like, and he's just... I'm like, I was like, how is that not fucking hilarious? Maybe you don't like Clint Eastwood as much as I do, because once you kind of get more into an actor, the same way I feel about Mel Gibson or something like that, you almost enjoy those performances in like a different sort of way.
I think this might sound kind of pretentious of me, but I think it's true. I think a lot of people are to movies as a lot of people are to music these days. especially like rap and hip hop, I feel like a lot of people that say that oh, wow, I love music. I love all kinds of music, and you start talking about music to them. They have no idea what you're talking about. They have no idea what bands you're talking about, what artists, what songs, what albums. And I truly believe that a lot of people out there don't really like music. They just like noise. I think they like background. I think if they go to a club, a party, whatever, it's just something that's there so they don't feel.
It fills in the void.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people are the same way with films. That's just like people that'll play a movie at their house, at their party, whatever. When people are around, it's like, do you want to socialize or do you want to watch this movie? Because I can't do both.
We can't really do both. Yeah.
And but that kind of makes me think of that, because when I think that one of the things about the arts in general, not just music, movies, but is there's a lot of things out there that are placed in movies, placed in whatever media it is that you're indulging in, is that sometimes things are outrageous because the director wants you to feel like, oh my gosh, this is so silly. Of course I'm going to laugh at it. It's like, gosh, I don't know. I can't think of an example right now, but yeah, it's like you're saying, Clint Eastwood walking around, oh, what the hell is this, you little son of a bitch, you gook, all the profanity,
all the stuff that he could get away with is just the old bitter man sitting on his front porch.
And one thing you have to give it to him with that movie for, and this is, I guess, if you're going to be racist, at least be a good racist. Be a make sure you're giving it out the best you can. He makes fun of everyone in that movie.
Yep.
He makes fun of white people in that movie.
Yeah, he makes fun of everybody. That's why I remember Ryan called it. He's like that movie should be titled like The Lovable Racist.
Yeah, exactly. But that said, I must disclose I'm not a racist. I like everyone, equally, which means I guess I hate everyone equally as well. But
that's like a South Park philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same kind of thing. No, I was telling the dudes that I guess I should say people, but there's only men in my class, in the cable class, which is going fantastic, by the way. It's really interesting, the similarities and differences between Charter Spectrum and Comcast Xfinity. Mm-hmm. Certain things that we were allowed to do in Comcast Xfinity, you and I, they don't do at Spectrum. Certain things Charter Spectrum does, they don't do at Comcast. Some of it's kind of menial. Some of it is a big deal. But like one of the menial things, like you remember those little rubber booties that some of the veteran techs would put up at the tap or the ground block or something. They'd be like, "Oh, if you find these, keep them," and because Comcast was like, "No, you can't use those anymore. You'll fail your inspection. You need to use the outdoor fittings." Here, they're like, they give them to you. They're like, use these, And my trainer's like, "Why wouldn't you use that? It keeps the water out." I'm like,
they just want to have it all built in one, you know what I mean? Yeah, those goofy little things. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I did. I told the group that our trainer's like, "Anybody doing anything cool tonight?" I'm like, "I'm gonna do a podcast with my buddy." He's like, "Oh yeah, what's it about?" I'm like, "Beaver."
The Beaver.
The movie, The Beaver, and they're like, oh, and everybody's like, "Oh, you do a podcast? Oh, what?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's not my podcast. I'm just on it, but it's called Old Man Orange. We do movies, we do whatever. Just talk about stuff." And so I don't know. Maybe you'll get another 15 people watching your podcast.
Hey, there you go. They all add up. That's the key thing. But they'll probably be like, "What the fuck is The Beaver?" Because really, once again, we were saying this movie kind of came and went, and this is also that era. Like I felt like about mid 2000s to maybe mid 2010s. There was this kind of surge of they call them independent movies. It's kind of hard to call a movie an indie movie when it's got Jodie Foster and Mel Gibson in it. Yeah, you know what I mean? I remember like one time there was somebody they're calling this one movie indie.
Elijah Wood.
Yeah. To me, it's like one of those ones. I hate to sort of say it. Like a real indie movie should have pretty much all no name. If you pretty much had one successful movie, you're not indie anymore. You literally there's only a one-time chance you get that. But in a sense, I'm going to say indie as in it has that kind of style where a little bit lower budget, mostly about kind of just life, slice of life kind of, mixed match of humor, emotion, drama, and everything like that. Mostly the locations are kind of simple. And that's sort of what this is. It's just literally guy who's depressed, Mel Gibson, hanging out. He gets kicked out of his home, and he finds this puppet is the only thing of salvation after he dropped a CRT TV on his head. I don't even know how he's Mel Gibson. So it makes sense,
One thing I thought was interesting about this movie, the way that it plays out. I mean, anything anymore, it's hard to make an original movie. And this movie's already not very new. It's newer, but it's not, within the last 5 years or anything.
2011.
Most ideas have already been played out, and what we get nowadays with film and TV and everything else is rehashes of what's already been done, or ideas that are just reimagined and whatnot. And I love this movie. I don't have anything bad to say about it, but I feel like it is the kind of story that you've seen before. Somebody falls to rock bottom. It's kind of like all those movies about musicians.
Yeah,
like
a VH1 special behind the music,
or like the Ray Charles movies. The same thing as the Stevie Wonder movies. The same thing as the James Brown movie. This Elvis movie. They're all the same. But anyway, I'm sure some people will crucify me for that, but whatever. The Beaver, it's the same kind of story of guy who has a lot, falls to rock bottom, to choose drastic measures in his life, and then something happens and it changes everything. Vividly, wildly, bizarrely. I don't know if that's a word, bizarre-like. But things start shaping up. Things are working out again. His wife, who kicked him out, now takes him back to bed. His company, which was on the brink of collapse, is skyrocketing, and in the stock market, it's doing so well. His son, who he had zero relationship with, is now like they've bonded like no other father and son have before. His other son still hates his guts, and the funny thing is, his son hates him so much that he develops these habits that he doesn't realize is turning himself into his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And but he's like, oh, I hate my dad so much. He starts writing notes about it, and
like how to not be like my dad, and 100 different notes on my wall. Like that just makes you look like a psychopath.
Yeah. Who has a poster to cover up the hole in their wall that they shove their head through every night? I mean, there's better ways, man. Like, be a real man and do drugs. But,
yeah, exactly.
But it's that same kind of formula that more often than not, it's a winning formula if it's done right, of course. Done with, if Jodie Foster's your director, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you got Jodie Foster, you got Mel Gibson, so you got super actors pretty much coming to town to deliver it. And I just love it, just like when the people are having the conversation, be like, no, don't talk to him, talk to me. I'm the Beaver.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's just moving around like, hello, I'm the Beaver, and this is what we're going to do for work. Now everybody's going to listen to me, and this is how we're going to keep our business going, is we are going to make these Beaver woodchuck kits, because kids need to learn wood skills. It's something that's been missing in school, because I'm the Beaver.
But yeah, it's a familiar formula, but it's innovated in such a clever way, and so weird, but that's the outrageous thing that ends up being hilarious, because it's like, this fucking quack is talking with a beaver in his hand. I'm like,
really, the older son's the only one that kind of notices and be like, dude, Mom, what the hell? Like, I thought you kicked him out. Like, Jesus Christ.
I kind of
bang my head in the wall.
That kid annoyed me so much. When my wife and I were watching it, like we kept thinking, like, man, this is like, Elijah Wood from Wish, and and he's such a weenie. Like, he's intelligent, he's super intelligent, and then like the dumb decision to take Jennifer Lawrence to a random spot, like she's like you could say she's like a recovered graffiti artist. She was hardcore into it, and like when she was 10 years old. Yeah, exactly. It's like, man, you haven't done this in years, but you're only like 17 now. I mean, like, what the heck kind of childhood did you have? But so he takes her brother's dead. Spoiler. I guess I should have said spoiler before I said her brother's dead. But either way, you're gonna keep watching.
He dies before the movie, so it's not like you're missing out.
So the dude writes, she's like, what do you like? I don't want to do this. I don't want to tag this wall with you. It is a crime. And he's like, oh my God, this is going to be perfect. And of course, preface this, it's their first date. You know? So what's he do?
It's a weird date. It's a date literally built upon that pretty much his job in school or his career opportunities is that he's really good at writing in other people's words and then handing in their homework for them. So he charges people a couple $100, writes their essays, and makes it feel like it's theirs, and that's how he makes a living. So he's doing it for Jennifer Lawrence, who needs like a graduation speech.
The valedictorian. Valedictorian. Yeah, that's. I was not that in high school.
No.
Her speech for that, and so they go on a date. First date, he takes her to a wall in some crappy alley, and says like, "Oh, I got all the cans of paint. You should do your art," you know. And she's like, "I don't want to." So he's like, "I'll start." R.I.P. Brian. It's like, what kind of an idiot?
My brother's name was Dave. Oh, sorry, wrong name.
But it's like, my wife's like, there's no way I'd stick around this guy. It's like, what a stupid thing to do. And of course I get arrested.
Yeah, exactly. And he has got $500 writing on this. Like, what are you doing? Like,
and what was even funnier is see, there we go again. What was even funnier? Like, that was funny in the first place. But what's funnier is when Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster go to pick him up. Of course, it's not Mel Gibson. It's the Beaver. He's never met this girl before in his life, and he just I'm sorry.
I'm the Beaver. Yeah. Hello, the Beaver's here to save the day. Don't you worry. He's just like, geez, Dad. It's like fucking like a goof troop or something like that, where he's just like very like just wants to like disown his father.
Exactly. It's funny. This is kind of reminding me of Meet the Feebles, and that's another one. When the people in the class, they're like, "Oh, what's the channel called?" And I'm like, "Old Man Orange." They look it up, and they're like, "What do you do on them?" The first thing I came to my mind was Meet the Feebles. I'm like,
it's a good starting place.
Our teacher, so Andy Serkis is going to be at the Planet Comic Con.
Oh, nice.
And he's like, "Yeah, I want to go because I want to meet Andy Serkis. I love Lord of the Rings." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Oh, so you like Lord of the Rings? So you ever heard of Meet the Feebles?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "It's nothing like it."
Same director though.
But yeah, that, and I told him about Brain Dead too.
That's a great one too.
But yeah, that's such a ridiculous movie, but it's great. But
it's super good.
But yeah, I can imagine, like, I don't know, if there, by some chance, and there won't be, but it'd be great if there was a sequel to Meet the Feebles. You know, like, I could just see the Beaver just like showing up, having a cameo, you know, in there.
Yeah, it'd be like just another like puppet character to come along.
We were today. The training's been kind of boring, but also a great refresher because it's been a few years since I did any of this. But what we were doing today was cutting fittings for RG11. Really big deal there, you know.
Yeah.
But doing that and making checking out our meter. It's kind of similar to the ones that we had, but it's different.
Yeah, probably better.
And messing around with that and gosh, what the heck was it? Well, I just wasted a few seconds there because I forgot where I was going with that.
The RG11 probably lost some people.
The Mortal Kombat. So what I was doing was, of course, I don't expect everybody to make these things super fast because there's only me and one other guy there who has experience with cable. And the other guy was a contractor. But everybody else, it's very new. So I made my two RG11 fittings, and I'm just like smacking my back and my sides with my cable because what else am I gonna do with it?
Pair of nuts and everything.
And I had the thought, you know what? You know who'd be a great guest character for the next Mortal Kombat game? Jim Carrey's Cable Guy.
Yo, that'd actually be pretty bad. That's a great fucking movie too.
And I was talking to a couple of the guys, the trainer and one of the other guys that's in the class. I'm like, that is not that is a strange movie. That is not your average hilarious Jim Carrey, you know, happy-go-lucky, whatever Jim Carrey. You know, it's like that's got a weird tone to it.
Yeah, it's almost like a horror movie, realistically, that just happens to be slightly funny.
In fact, I think the Beaver's funnier than the Cable Guy.
Yeah, the Beaver's pretty darn funny. I don't care what anybody says. I think the Beaver's fucking hilarious. Like, you know what I mean? And maybe it's just because it's Mel Gibson and a beaver puppet, you know, telling everybody everything like that. And then, you know, life's getting better with the Beaver. Once he's got the Beaver in there and everything like that, he's back in the house.
Oh,
His
man.
youngest kid loves him. You know, Jodie Foster's literally brought him back real quick. Like, she didn't really care that much, you know, until she brings out those photos. When she does that, I mean, she shows him those photos, and he's like, no, none of this, like, early life shit.
No, not real life. I love the fight at the end between him and his fist.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it goes full on Evil Dead, because it really reminds me of Evil Dead 2 at that point.
Oh yeah, cutting off the hand and everything. No, he's had when he was another made me think of Jim Carrey. It's him fighting himself. As that's going on, I leaned over to Juliana. I'm like, I'm kicking my ass. Do you mind?
Yeah, well, it's one of those ones. I will say, like, in watching The Beaver, though, when I do watch it, I do think of, like, the things it could be, because it could really go really far into that craziness. It could start off as one of those movies where it's like, oh, it's kind of a sad, depressing drama first, then his life's kind of getting back in order, and you could have really ran with that Evil Dead shit towards the end even farther.
That'd have been funny if by some bizarre, weird anomaly of a chance, that they, instead of making it a movie, they made it like the first part of a 2-part miniseries.
This is just an extended cut,
like a 3-hour film, like that Irishman or something. You know, like,
yeah.
Which I still haven't seen. I've heard good things, but I just
It didn't come out to theaters, so it kind of felt like, I don't know. I have this weird thing that, like, if a movie doesn't come out to theaters, I really have a hard time going out of my way to see it. It's like one of those ones. It almost feels like it's not a real movie then, you know. And I'm not saying there's not good movies that come straight to DVD and straight to video and so on, but yeah, it feels like something's missing.
Yeah, we were speaking of that. We were talking about. We had extra time at the end of the class today, but we were started talking about Star Wars and stuff. And a lot of the people in my class are a lot younger than you and I, so I don't blame them for. I guess that sounds judgmental, but I don't really care. A lot of them really love some of these new Star Wars miniseries on Disney Plus and stuff. And one of the guys was like, "Oh, the Obi-Wan was awesome." My trainer liked Obi-Wan, and he's 2 years older than me. He's, 36. But I liked the idea. I really liked the idea. I liked a few scenes from it, but overall, I was like, man, this 6-hour, 6-episode, whatever, could have been summed up in an hour and a half.
It could have just been a movie. That's it.
Walking, you know, like, yeah, exactly, moving.
It should have just been. It should have just been like the Han Solo movie. Like, that's really all it should have been.
I loved that movie. I thought that movie was great. The ending was a little silly with like the Darth Maul part, but that said, I love Darth Maul. So, but we were talking about Rebel Moon, which, have you seen that?
You know, that's one I've been wanting to see. You know, I do like Zack Snyder, and the fact that when he kind of described it as like a heavy metal thing, I was kind of waiting for it, and I think it's out by now, is because I know that there's a PG-13 version and there's a rated R one. I'm like, well, I don't want to see the PG-13 one. I just want to go for the R version.
I don't know what I saw. I only knew there was I only knew of there being one. Well, there's the Rebel Moon and Rebel Moon Part 2, and they came out on Netflix, and I think Part 2 came out like a month after the first one.
Yeah, because there's like 2 parts, but I know it was like 6 months later the rated R version was supposed to come out or something.
I'm gonna have to look for that. But yeah, that's another one's kind of funny. Like my trainer, he hated the film. He said there was tons of plot holes and stuff, which I thought about. I'm like, okay, I could kind of see that. And but what I liked about it, because if you don't already know, I'm sure you do, was Zack Snyder's basically his version of Star Wars, or what?
Yeah.
And it got rejected. Disney Plus didn't like it, or Disney didn't like it, so it was rejected. Well, he came out with it anyway, and we watched it when it came out, and I was like, hey, you know, that was actually pretty entertaining. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I took it for what it was worth. You know, I didn't know what to expect, for one. Leading up from that, I didn't expect a lot. But that said, I said to my instructor, and he kind of agreed with me. I was like, you know, it's kind of like an 80s action film. You know, like it's not something you take super seriously. But if it's fun, then, you know, you might have a great movie, you know, but I
personally always think the fun factor outweighs everything else. Like I don't care. Like the story could be missing stuff, the acting could be off, but if I'm having a hell of a time, I don't care.
And honestly, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find a lot of movies that aren't full of gaps, full of plot holes, or just things that don't add up in the story. And if that's what hangs you up on a movie, I mean, why are you even watching it?
Yeah.
Or what? Not that, but if that's what's poking out to you, you know what? Never mind.
I know what you mean though, because there's a lot of people who they focus very hard, like they're looking for everything wrong, you know, and it's that thing. It's like, how about you look for everything right first? You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have a much better time if you do that. Yeah, there's always gonna be something probably off here and there, and some things could always be better, but it is one of those ones that I think that's the thing. Is a lot of people they see negative first and positive second, because positive is a lot harder to find. You know what I mean? You have to actually put effort in to find positive. Where negative, you could just sit back and just, you know, be a, you know, literally like an armchair fucking like critic.
When I first watched The Force Awakens, so Star Wars Episode 7, I saw that in theaters, and the first time I watched it, I know a lot of people that had their mind up right after they watched it, which is fine, of course.
Yeah.
When I first watched it, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then I thought about it, because I had to think about everything after I first watched it, or whatever, doesn't matter. And I got kind of disappointed. I got kind of like bummed out. You know, like, because I'm like, you know, that was more or less just a retelling of A New Hope.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was, I'm bummed out. You know, we waited how many years for this? And they have probably more of a budget than Star Wars would have ever had. Things that you thought were going to happen by watching the trailer, you were wrong. You know, I went into that movie thinking that the guy who played Finn, the black guy, the stormtrooper, I had the idea he was going to be the main character.
Yeah, and he's literally doesn't really have a whole lot in all three of those movies. He's just there. That's it. He's so underused.
And he's so underused to the point where China didn't even have him on their poster. But
yeah.
But
but yeah, no, it's like that one that and it's the thing, is there's some of those movies where, you know, you will watch it, and then the more you think about it, like the more it kind of bothers you a little bit. Like you also go the other way. I've seen some movies where like I watched it and I kind of walked down. I was like, that was kind of just okay. And then like 2 days later, I start thinking more and more about it. I'm like, dude, that part was pretty cool. You got that, you know, that little touch right there. And then I end up really liking it, going like, man, you know what? That's actually a pretty good movie. Sometimes you just got to kind of know, you know, I mean, I'll say this. There was one movie. I remember when Fight Club came out back in the day, and I remember when I finally watched that. The first time I watched that, I was like, that movie's stupid. Like, Brad Pitt's not real? Like, what the hell is this? Like it was like one of those ones like...
Brad Pitt's always real.
Yeah, exactly. I was so like disappointed. And then once I sort of knew what the plot was and the premise and everything like that, I went back and watched it again. I was like, no, that's a really fucking good movie. You know, like once I kind of got it, it was like, okay, no, I get it. We all want to be Brad Pitt, so that's why we imagine ourselves as that.
That reminded me of a scene from The Office. What you're describing is kind of the same way for the way I feel about, and I guess my wife too, about The Office in the other direction. But for me, for her, it's the same direction we had you described. Started watching, and you're like, this is stupid. And then she continued watching, and she's like, oh, I actually really like this. The Office is a weird show. Another show that I think maybe was on for a little too long. But its first season, bizarrely enough, is significantly shorter than every other season of the show. First season's only 6 episodes. Every other season is anywhere from like 18 to 24. Yeah,
well, a lot of times, like with certain shows, that means they were just trying it out. That's why it was only 6.
And there's a lot of differences between most of the main things about the show are the same from the first season to the rest, but there's little things that are like very different. The boss character, who's the boss from season 1 to 7, or I should say to the end of 7, Steve Carell, his character is very different from season 1 between 1 and 2. Like it's like you said, they're trying things out, you know. Well, I guess they decided, like, yeah, he was way too cringy. So let's lighten him up a little bit. Let's change his hairstyle literally. And it was like, it just changed everything, changed the whole mood of the show. But the first time I started watching that was when you and I were teenagers pretty much. And I thought it was stupid when season 1 was on TV. And then when I think I saw like halfway through season 2, and I'm like, oh, the show is actually kind of funny. It's not inherently a funny show. There's just a lot of funny scenes in it. Mm-hmm. And I'm really interested to see the British version with Ricky Gervais. Because I've never seen that one. But so yeah, like growing up, finishing high school, whatnot, watching that show, I thought it was hilarious. Loved it. Never finished it until like years later. And on the second watch through, which I did in 2020, when it was still on Netflix, if in the US, it's on Netflix in Brazil.
Of course, yeah.
But I watched it through 5 years ago, and I was like, man, I just don't like the show that much. Not as much as I thought I did. And what it ended up being was I didn't like 2 characters, and they pretty much hog up most of the show, which is Jim and Pam. Okay. They're the couple, you know, the couple of the show, and it just gets so like gross isn't the right word. I guess I don't want to say gross. I don't want to say cringy. It's just like too much. It's just too much. Like, okay, man, you can do so much more. Just move on. But I guess they were fan favorite characters, and that's why they got a lot of emphasis in the show. But my wife, so she started watching. She thought the same thing, like, oh, this is dumb, you know. Well, then I was playing clips on YouTube one day of like clips from this season, clips from that season. They're pretty hilarious. She's like, oh, let's start watching that again. So we didn't even watch season 1. We just bypassed it, went to season 2. And, well, we're almost done with the show now. But yeah, it's definitely one that's not for everyone. It's one that I look back on and I'm like, yeah, I would shorten this show up. But no, I guess I do the same thing with music too. Sometimes, like you're saying, you watch it, you're like, that was dumb. The you know, hey, we're like, why isn't Brad Pitt real? Oh, what made me think of The Office was that, like, you know, we all want to be Brad Pitt. There's a scene where Michael Scott, Steve Carell, one of the workers comes in there. He's like, oh, I got an idea. You know, I'm so-and-so to some musician, or you're this person and I'm Beyonce. Steve Carell's like, I'm Beyonce. Always. It's just little cracks like that you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, but, yeah. It seems like it definitely has that little kind of light, dry humor that almost has a British feel to it. Realistically, I guess that makes sense.
I love the dry humor. And that's why I really want to watch the British one, because, I mean, if you like dry humor, definitely the British have it nailed down. I mean, it's so dry that you're like, is this a comedy?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the best parts there. Yeah, I don't think I've ever really seen it. I might have seen like 1 or 2 episodes of The Office, maybe back in the day, because, you know, in the olden days, you just sat there and just watched. You just flipped through TV.
Whatever's on TV.
Yeah, you know, like, and there's something kind of special about that. I do sometimes miss like just channel surfing and just, you know, I don't know if you would be able to do it today and have that same experience, but like if you could go back to like 1999 and do some channel surfing and just watch some random shit on TV and then have to forcefully, you know, because sometimes it's like you're like, well, the show I want to watch on is at 8 and it's 7 o'clock now, so I guess I'm watching this thing in between. Yeah, I'm not leaving the couch. You know, I've already made myself, you know, a home here.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I guess it depends on your provider, of course, and everything. I work in the Spectrum, of course. I get the benefits that are pretty similar to the ones we had at Comcast. Got a free cable box and whatnot, and it's literally been sitting on my entertainment center, still wrapped in the plastic, for a week.
Well, I hate to sort of say it nowadays. That's the only downfall. It's like, why? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, for the most part, I just don't want to watch commercials. That's my biggest thing. It's like,
yeah,
you know, if I watch retro, I'll sit down and watch an hour's worth of retro commercials from the 80s or 90s. I got no problem there. Man. But like, I just do not care to see the commercials. That's what loses. It's going to lose me on that.
Well, check it out, man. I feel the same way, and that's why even at Comcast, I was always telling people, and they're like, what channel lineup should I get? What service should I get? You know, like if they were an internet only customer, should I really get Comcast or should I get Dish? And I'm like, man, just get whatever you can afford. I don't know. Like I'm, you know, the what I should have said per the company is no, buy ours. You know, like it's the best.
Yeah,
Whatever.
get it all. Get the phone. Get the internet. Get everything.
I was so disenchanted with Comcast. But you know, I'm like, yeah, man, just whatever you want. I don't know. But you see, up until like a year ago, all the streaming services you could get, you paid the fee that they charged, and it was just streaming. There was no commercials. There was no breaks, whatever. Now it's like, I'll tell you what, we've been watching The Office on Peacock because that's the only streaming service it's on in the U.S.
Because it's an NBC show. It's what it's tied to.
Yes. And it sucks because I'm paying for Peacock. What happened was, so we were using a VPN. We got ExpressVPN to watch shows from other countries on Netflix. The Office was in Brazil. So we started watching the show. We watched like half a season maybe on Netflix. And then Netflix realized we were using a VPN. So it stopped. And I'm like, well, that just defeats the purpose. That's exactly why I got this thing.
Yeah, so the VPN has no purpose anymore now. It is totally useless.
And so I'm like, well, I guess I'll just buy the show, you know. And I looked online. I'm like, I'm not going to buy the show. It's like $90. And so I'm like, you know what? It's on Peacock. It's $7.99 a month. I'll get that. We watch the show. We finish the show. We get rid of Peacock. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, that's perfect. It makes perfect sense. I'm like, I'd rather pay, you know, $8 for this show than $90. And well, Peacock sucks. Not only does the streaming service suck, just the way it works and everything. Most streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, whatever, HBO Max, they all have like the 10-second increments for like you could go back 10. Oh, I missed that. What do you say? You know, there's not that on Peacock. You have to rewind, and it rewinds faster than the speed of light. And
or sometimes it goes really fucking slow because the only thing I ever really use Peacock for is WWE, like pay-per-views and so on like that, which is cool, but like it's not as good as it was when it used to be just the WWE network. I'd rather just give $10 to that and actually have people good than Peacock that's sort of like a half-assed, you know. It's not the worst, but it's not really like...
One thing that repeatedly happens to me is when one of us misses something or whatever, I'll go to rewind it, and it was like, say, 5 seconds after commercial.
Oh, yeah, you got the commercial ones. Yeah, I never had the commercial
spot. And that's another thing. That's where I was saying, like, you know, not paying for cable because there's commercials. Now pretty much every streaming app has got commercials. And if you don't want them, you got to pay another, like, extra $5.
Yeah, and for me, I'm like, I'll pay the $5. I don't want the commercials. It's one of those ones. I remember I added it up one time on YouTube. I don't remember what it was, but I kind of like, how much time am I wasting by having to go through these like commercials? And then it was like at the end of a month, it was like literally like 15 hours or something like that if you're watching a bunch of stuff. So it's like no, that's not worth my time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, well, luckily we only have the last season of the show, and then I'm screw Peacock.
That's it. Yeah, done skis.
Oh my gosh, man. What'll happen is, so we finish the commercial. 5-10 seconds go by, and what do you say? I go to rewind it. It goes back to the commercial spot and plays it again, and I can't skip it. I'm like,
it's the same like 5 commercials. That's always my biggest problem. It's like, at least on regular TV back in the day, you had a variety of commercials.
I'm pretty tired of hearing about pharmaceuticals and Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that's it.
Because that's what the commercials have been.
Yeah, it's the same ones. It's I'll say there's one out there that I've used once in a blue moon. There's one called Tubi that's all free, but the upside, it has like the best selection. Like pretty much if you can't find a movie like on anything else, it is most likely on Tubi. And they have commercials, but they're not too bad. It's every 20 minutes or so, there's a commercial break for maybe 2 minutes, and at least they rotate the commercials pretty well. It's not like you're watching the same 4 commercials over and over again. But 20 minutes is like good enough. I'm like, that's actually not too bad. That's kind of like old school TV. And I wish I could just pay them $5 and get rid of that shit. You know what I mean? Because I would, because they actually have a better selection than almost anybody else. You know, but they like to stay free and, you know.
You know, do you ever use Crunchyroll?
I have, yeah.
I used to, but most of the stuff I was interested in watching on there is all available on Hulu.
Yeah, and, Hulu's got a pretty good anime selection. So, yeah, and Hulu's got a lot more older anime too.
Yeah, between Hulu and Netflix, there's a lot of selection for that. There's a lot of anime I want to get into, but of course half of them are 1,000 episodes and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like forget about it. Yeah, that's why I'm so.
The best ones are like 20 episodes.
Yeah, that's the best. The Cowboy Bebop link, that's the best one. 26 episodes.
Cowboy Bebop. Trigun wasn't too long.
Yeah, that's like 26 as well.
Big O.
Outlaw Star, Big O.
Outlaw Star is another great one.
Yeah.
I think you were telling me, isn't Outlaw Star done by the same people who did Cowboy Bebop?
No, that's Samurai Champloo.
That's right. That's right.
You know, but that's the thing. It's like that's the good length. 26. You know, because once you start going, yeah, Hellsing's in that same length too. You know, both versions of that. But well, that's kind of, I feel like I watch a lot of anime off YouTube because all the stuff I want's like 80s and 90s anime. So
Lupin the Third.
Yeah, I fucking love Lupin. You know, so I feel like I need the old man section of like anime because you kind of go on Crunchyroll and like I'm like 90% of this does not appeal to me.
Yeah, there's so many nowadays that I'm like, dude, what? Chainsaw Head Man or whatever the hell. I'm like, what?
That one's actually pretty good for a newer one.
I was talking to some of the dudes in my new hire class because they were talking about. I'm like, what is that even about? What is going on? Because at first glance I look at that and I'm like, I'm not watching that. It looks stupid as shit. It looks like a bad ripoff of The Tick with the chairhead villain.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. It's just the Japanese variation. No, that one actually is that one's pretty decent. I got like a couple books into it, and then I hadn't got any farther. But I liked what it was, and I always said I was going to continue it, and then I just never got around to it, like most things in life.
Speaking of The Tick, I think they did a reboot or something of The Tick not too long ago.
I think so. I think there was like either I don't know if it was another TV show run, or if it. But I want to say it had the original actors in it and everything too.
Which I really want to check out because that original show was fantastic.
Yes, I love it. It was like
I couldn't believe that it didn't. Well, I guess it wasn't the right time for that kind of show. I don't think there was a lot of things that were going on at the same time in the world of TV or movies that would have already had people in the mood for that kind of thing. Like nowadays, it's like if you don't like anime and Marvel, like you're an idiot.
Yeah.
It's like an anime when I was in school. Like people thought I was gay.
Yeah, no. Back in the day, and it was like the thing I always think about, especially anime in the '90s. That's the thing is like nowadays you turn on Crunchyroll and you got like 1,000 shows to pick from. You're like, we used to be grateful for having like 5 different things that you randomly had to search for really hard on like midnight on like Sci-Fi Channel or Stars Action. And like they weren't just everywhere. And even on like the major, like, Fox Kids and so on like that, they would like cherry pick an anime and throw it on there in between other stuff, just to test the waters.
You know what I really love? It's not anime, but I'd love to see it again. Is Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
That's my dad's favorite show right there.
I remember watching that. I was like 8 years old, and I'd never seen Space Ghost the cartoon before. I had seen Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I saw Space Ghost after. Like the original Space Ghost cartoons after I'd seen Coast to Coast. And I always thought it was weird. I'm like, why doesn't he talk why does he have this dumb voice? Like he's Batman or something.
Yeah, it's like, well, I like the original show too, but it's like, it's 60s, so it's like, it's definitely old school. But those old 60s, like Hanna-Barbera's, like Space Ghost and the original Johnny Quest and the Herculoids, all those shows, I'm very partial towards.
Sometimes I feel like Space Ghost Coast to Coast has a big part of my subconscious. Like if I'm just walking around the house or something, I'm like,
Yeah. Well, the funny thing too is you go back and watch that show now, and it's like how limited that animation is.
It's just
like
frames that are stuff.
Yeah, they just reuse a lot of the same stuff, but it's almost kind of magical how much they get away with.
Yeah. It's kind of like the precursor to like a Red versus Blue, and all that kind of crap.
Yep. No, well, Space Ghost Coast to Coast is technically, it's before Adult Swim, but you could say that's the initial inception of Adult Swim in like '96. That kind of starts it all off.
That's when Moltar was in charge of Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Before Tom.
Yeah, before Tom. Yeah, when Tom from that was on Toonami.
Yeah. Of course.
So it's like it was Space Ghost Coast to Coast was '96, and Adult Swim I don't think happened until 2001, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a bit of a gap there, but that lead up is like Toonami is also kind of like the gateway too, because That was the one where it's like, we got some edgy stuff. We got the uncut version of Gundam Wing. You know, they say "damn" in it. You're gonna get some chest hairs growing tonight.
That threw me off so bad when I first started learning about. Well, actually, I think Gundam might have been the first anime I ever saw. No, it was definitely Dragon Ball Z. But because I think Dragon Ball Z was on Cartoon Network before Toonami was a thing.
Yeah, because Dragon Ball Z came out on like 97.
But no, it threw me off so bad because for one, I had no clue, and I wouldn't know for years just how crazy expansive, the Gundam universe is. It's like 80 different Gundam shows and movies. I thought Gundam Wing was the only Gundam.
No, and that's like the show number 5 by that point, but that's the one they brought to the U.S. first, or at least for TV.
Yeah, the character Hiro Yui. I remember watching where the girl that likes him or whatever, she's like, oh, talking to him, and the first time I saw it, he turns around and he's just like, "I'll destroy you," and then I saw it I don't know, a year later, the same episode, and he's like, "I'll kill you." Actually, I think it was the other way around. I'll kill you and then I'll destroy you. And when I saw the "I'll destroy you," it was almost like a cat that sees a bird on the windowsill. I'm like,
yeah.
Wait a minute. No, that's not what he said.
Yeah.
And of course, another thing was I also had no idea that these shows were originally in Japanese.
Yeah.
So whatever they're saying, it doesn't make a difference, but.
Yeah, they might be saying that anyways. It's funny because that show's also it's like a war drama, political espionage thing. There's a lot of deep stuff going on in that show that probably just goes straight over a kid's head as you're just like, when are they gonna go into their giant robots?
Yeah, I love Gundam. I think it's such a cool universe. But I also like military stuff, so I guess that's
same here. So it's
that's why I love Halo. That's why I have a million Spartans over there, because I love the armor. I think it's cool.
It's badass, yeah. No, and it's that sort of thing. It's just that's how I kind of feel about anime. There's some new stuff out there that can be interesting, and so don't get me wrong, I like some of it. But for the most part, if I was stuck with just 80s and 90s anime, I would be fine. I could literally go the rest of my life, and I probably have more stuff than I even need to catch up on because there's so much stuff from back in the day. That I'm good to go.
I can go from I can watch Shin-Chan and then go right into Outlaw Star.
Yep.
Or but yeah, or no, that's another one, Dragon Ball Z. That was my absolute favorite anime as a kid, and I'd say my favorite anime now is probably Inuyasha.
That's a good one too. I like that one. I like that, and I like Ranma 1/2.
But I haven't seen that.
Same creator as Inuyasha.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out. But the I never realized how goofy the Dragon Ball universe is for years.
Yeah.
As a kid, I took it so seriously. It was I was religious about.
Yeah, well, it was. That's what you tuned in every night. You did not miss a single episode, or you always, if you missed something, you literally would miss something so drastically bad. That's why it sounds weird, but I remember the moment that I kind of gave up television was because of Full Metal Alchemist. Because it got to a point that it was bad. If on Saturday night, if you didn't have Cartoon Network, forget about it. I am not spending the night at your house. You can come over to mine, but we're watching Full Metal Alchemist makes all the rules.
And then if you jerking off right behind you to the side, you're like,
it's okay. It's okay. Full Metal Alchemist is on. It's a half an hour. Don't anybody make it a sound, So it's like that one where it's it was so important, and if you missed an episode, you always miss something. It's not like you could just miss a throwaway episode. You always miss one that something major happened, and if a buddy didn't happen to tape it off TV on the VCR, that there was no way. You're gonna have to wait 44 more weeks for that to come back up again, So it was and then I got a point. I'm like, this is controlling my life. I can't do this anymore. And this is still kind of DVR existed at this point, but you kind of had to be sort of rich to have a DVR. That was when TiVo was around. So it was an add-on. It wasn't you just got it for free, with your satellite provider or anything like that.
The speaking of the DVRs, that's what's sitting downstairs right now in plastic. But the
that seems like more work nowadays. I got to record it and do that.
So the Do you remember the legacy equipment with Comcast, the legacy boxes versus the X1 boxes?
Yeah.
So that's what Spectrum has for cable. They have the legacy. X1, I think, is exclusive to Comcast. I don't think any other cable company has that.
That makes sense.
The Spectrum doesn't have their version of X1. Well, technically. So if you want a DVR, you're going to get legacy. But so it's going to be legacy. Eventually, they won't have that. Right now, they're pushing everyone to get these little boxes they call Zoomos. And it's just a streaming box.
Sounds like a fucking insult. Hey, you fucking Zumo.
What are you talking about, you jabroni? Oh, jabroni, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, you are your fucking Zumo.
Put your Zumo back in your pants. But no, it's just a streaming box. And even that, what some of the salesmen were telling me were, yeah, we're trying to get everybody to go to that. But even then, we're trying to get everybody to just not even have that and just download the Spectrum app to their TV. So
it's like, it's one of those ones. I feel like they're holding on to dear life for. It's like one of those ones. All realistically, with like, I feel with like Starlink, that's the thing that's putting the run for their money, because it's like, oh shit, somebody, because that was always the thing I felt like Comcast and stuff held on to, is like, hey, we're the only ones that really provide internet. You know what I mean? Like, where you gonna go, huh? You know, you need the internet no matter what. But now, if they don't need the internet and there's other options, they're kind of screwed, because they're literally holding on to like, 70 and above for normal cable and satellite. Like,
so now we're another big thing that threw me for a loop. It's like coax is coax. It doesn't matter what company you work for. If you know how to mess with cable, like, you're gonna be good.
Yeah.
There is more fiber out here than I've ever seen in my life, which is really funny to me. It makes me laugh in certain people's faces that always criticize me for moving to Missouri. Some of the people I know back in California, like, why would you move out there, that backwards country, stupid, you're stuck in the past, this and that. And I'm just thinking, like, I worked cable in your area for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And like, it's all from like the 50s,
literally.
And, the
RG59.
Out here, exactly. Out here, we have fiber going directly to people's houses.
Yeah.
And a lot of updated utilities in general. And it's like, part of me is like, you know what? Keep thinking what you're thinking. Stay there.
Yeah. You don't need to know about this.
But the Dragon Ball, it's talking about that. I think I was telling you a few podcasts ago that I started watching the newest one that they did, Daima.
Mm-hmm.
And I still stand by what I said the first time. It is boring and disappointing. Anybody who's saying, like, because every time I have an opinion about something that's strong, I'm like, what are people saying that's the opposite? I go on Reddit or whatever, and people are defending it like crazy, and it drives me nuts. So I'm like, this show sucks. It just sucks. It's boring. Nothing's going on. There's been, I think I haven't seen the last 2 episodes. I've seen 15 of them. And I guess the whole first season is only 20. It's funny thinking about seasons to an anime, because I remember when I watched Dragon Ball, when I watched every other anime that was on Toonami, what was a season? I had no idea what a season.
I think in Japan, I think that's more of an American concept to have a season.
Sagas.
Well, that, and I think in Japan, they just ran those continuously. I think it's just, every Monday through Friday or whatever they chose for their like release date, they just ran those. That's why Dragon Ball catches up really fast, to like the manga and everything like that, because they're just running them like all year long, 44 episodes. Well, that's pretty much like your entire like week span in a sense, depending on how you do it. And sometimes I think they ran a couple of them. Like those seasons would almost be like seasons that we know of would literally be, 2 of them a year or something like that. So like in Japan, I think it was run a little bit differently. It was just serial in a sense.
Yeah. I was watching Daima concurrent with GT. I finished GT like a month and a half ago. It was easier to finish, of course, because it was all already out. It's on Hulu. You can watch the whole thing. The only thing I didn't watch of it, which I have on disc, is the Dragon Ball GT movie, which I'll probably watch maybe Saturday or something. I don't know. But that's another one that blows my mind. Like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of silly stuff in that show too, but holy crap, was it better than Daima? I don't have anything good to say about that show. I really don't. The only cool things that's happened is Vegeta. I was gonna say Gina. Vegeta goes Super Saiyan 3, but even that it's so underwhelming the way it happens.
Yeah, you were saying that it wasn't nearly that exciting.
But anyway.
Yeah, it's that one that I kind of feel with a lot of newer TV shows. Like, I have a really hard time getting into all kinds of stuff. And animation started to get kind of bad recently, where like they play out like bad modern day TV shows, which everybody apparently likes. That's why they do it. But where like in a sense nothing happens. Like you can watch like an hour-long episode and like maybe there's one cool moment, and I feel like the average person's like, "Wow, that moment was so cool! you remember that part? It was so good.
That was fire."
Like, and then it's like, yeah, but do you remember the other 50 minutes where nothing happened? No? Yeah, that's what I fucking thought. Yeah. So you get that kind of stuff, and I think that's what happens. See, like I'm the person that I remember the 50 minutes where I was going like, okay, nothing's happening here. You know, and that can happen in a movie, but the thing about a movie,
I get up and I start cooking and stuff. You know, like.
Well, but a movie's only 2 hours long, like so it's like even if nothing happens in the beginning, but it's just like a build-up. Who cares? The movie's done by 2 hours. It's not like I got, another 20 hours of like this like meandering type stuff. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's annoying.
Yeah, I'm
like,
so
why
iffy about.
am I watching this? You know, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, it's just like
the other thing that drives me crazy is how much people got paid for this production. Like you got paid to just not do a whole lot, say a few things.
Well, that's like the weirdest one is how people treat, in a sense, voice actors for anime in like such high regard. And I kind of hate to sort of say, be like, these guys they didn't make any of this stuff. You know what I mean? How about the poor bastard that had to draw all this?
Oh my
you know
God.
what I mean? Yeah, that guy's the one you should be shaking their hand and getting a photo with.
These arthritic hands that were beaten by their parents for not becoming a doctor.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, that would make you want to go, like, hang yourself with a tie, and next thing you know, the CRT TV falls on you while you're watching. Going back to Beaver, I think he's watching Kung Fu while that happens, too, just for a little bit of extra.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was watching dubbed
David Carradine, yeah. I bought that. Speaking of TV shows, I bought that show like a while back because it was like $20 or something. I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll take that." Kung Fu, I've always wanted to sit down and really watch it and so on. I got a handful of episodes in it. It was good, but I'm like, this is going to be an undertaking, and I do not know if I have this time.
I think I might try to find the David Carradine made me think of, for whatever reason, Chuck Norris.
Yes.
And yes,
That's a great
I'm
show.
gonna try to find that show and watch it.
Every once in a while, I'll see it go on sale for like, it'll be like $30 or $40. I'm like, for the whole collection. I'm like, that's kind of cool, Sometimes it kind of goes like, I love Chuck. I mean, like, I literally.
The show Chuck?
No, just Chuck Norris in general.
Oh, of course. The guy I literally brought up.
The guy you just brought up, and you're like,
Reggie?
Hello, Reggie. Yeah, like one of those moments. Like, Zoink Scoop! But yeah, like, just Chuck Norris. I fucking really just love Chuck Norris movies. They're so good. So, and Walker, Texas Ranger, that's one of those ones that I remember back in the day, I would just catch random ass episodes of it, but I'd never fully ever.
Same.
Watched. I didn't watch it religiously or anything like that.
The only movies that I've seen with Chuck Norris in them were The Expendables 2.
Yeah,
I don't think it's 2. 3, 4, how many ever they had. And then the other movie was where he was the villain against
Bruce Lee.
Yes.
Yeah, and Return of the Dragon. Return of the Dragon.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that's the only films I've seen him in.
Oh, well, you got a lot to go. I just watched this one called The Octagon, and I'd never seen it before. And the poster always looked badass. And I think it's 80 or 81. And it's literally Chuck Norris against a bunch of ninjas. There's like this ninja kind of training ground thing that's going on, and they're kind of doing these like terrorist activities and so on. It takes old Chuck to come by and save the day. And it was action packed, super violent, and yeah, I just fucking love the living daylights out. I'm like, this is badass. That's how all those Chuck Norris movies are. There's the fun factors there so high, and I know we were talking about that earlier. And that's really at the end of the day. I don't care what it is. It could be a comic book, it could be a movie, it could be a video game, any of that stuff. If the fun factor's there, I can literally bypass a lot of other stuff.
Absolutely. My wife and I we're making our way through '80s action. Well, '80s, '90s, I don't really care, but the action flicks with the all those big stars, of Dolph Lundgren, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce,
Jean-Claude Van Damme, Stallone,
Stallone, Bruce Willis, pretty much all the cast of
Expendables. Mel Gibson, you could throw him in there too. Speaking of that,
I think one of the last ones we watched was not exactly an action film, but it was an action film actor, and it was I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was where Stallone was a firefighter and he had saved the people in the tunnel.
Oh God, that's I know I've seen that one a long time. It's kind of like late '90s, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Yeah. I haven't seen that one in a very long time, but I do remember that. Yeah. It's funny because Stallone has kind of mixed match. His movies kind of go in waves. He'll have some the best movies known to mankind, and then have some they're it's not bad, but it's okay. I don't know what was really going on there.
It's weird to think about a dude like that not being in an action role, like a fighter role, which weirdly enough, Arnold Schwarzenegger has a lot of those, where he's not kind of. I thought of Kindergarten Cop, but then he's a cop.
He's a police officer. You think more like Twins and everything like that?
Twins, Jingle All
the Way. Yeah. Well, because that's the thing is Arnold kind of excelled at a lot of those comedy ones where Stallone tried that and it just didn't really pan out the same way.
My wife had no idea that he had an accent up until 4 years ago.
I had a buddy, I remember one time we were watching Rocky, and he's like, dude, can you turn the subtitles on? I'm like, dude, he's speaking English.
Well, she had no idea because most of the movies she's seen were all in Portuguese.
Oh, that makes sense.
Different voice actors. And, when I first played it, I played a clip for her. I sent her one. She sends me back a text in all caps. Arnold Schwarzenegger has an accent? What the hell? And I'm like, is this news to you? She's like, yes. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The other funny thing about movies, and it's probably the same way in other countries too, but in Brazil, most your movie names are different than their names in English.
Mm-hmm.
And usually in Brazil, they are translated so ridiculously. It's not even the Total Recall. It's called. I think it's called something like The Avenger from the Future.
Oh, I think I have heard that name before. Yeah. Brazil goes really hard on these weird names. It almost makes it sound like it's an anime.
It's hilarious sometimes, but
yeah, just translating that and so on. It's funny because I'm just gonna kind of go back to Mel Gibson real quick with certain action movies.
Of course,
because when you mentioned Expendables, it's that's the one I always think about because Mel Gibson.
I forgot he was in that.
He's the bad guy in that, and really even though the Beaver comes out right after Mel Gibson sort of had that drunken blowout where he blamed all the Jewish people for stuff and so on, and ever since then he's kind of been blacklisted. And I think he was trying to kind of come back, be like, I'll make this artsy Beaver movie and so on like that there. And the bummer is it's even this day, it's they just had that new movie Flight Risk that came out that Mel Gibson directed, but on the trailer it doesn't have his name in it. It just literally says from the guy who brought you Braveheart and Hacksaw Ridge. It's you can't even put his name on there. What's wrong with you people and so on. And I kid you not, that Flight Risk movie, fucking phenomenal.
I haven't seen that.
Dude, I love the living daylights out of it. I thought it was fucking perfect, just like any other Mel Gibson directed movie. It's got Scary Marky Mark in it. It's like a little bottle film. They're pretty much on a plane, and Topher Grace is going in because he's on witness protection, and Marky Mark's there to take him out. I thought it was super good. And once again, just like anything else that Mel Gibson's ever directed, he fucking goes down. And it's the same way I feel with Mel Gibson's acting because, you watch Expendables 3 and it's got tons of great people in there. Of course, you got Dolph Lundgren, you got Terry Crews, you got.
I think Mel Gibson's a fantastic actor.
But then you get Mel Gibson in there and it's his act is just so much better than almost everybody else's. It's almost unreal because he's just that fucking good.
He's terrifying.
Yeah.
If you take him from Lethal Weapon and you throw a little Hitler in there. But no, the dude's he's a great actor. It's a shame that he had a little meltdown.
Yeah, it's just a bummer that still.
There's that bizarre phone call that he left on his wife's voicemail too. Years ago.
There was a few moments there and so on, but it's kind of a bummer because it's just for 14 years or whatever it's been, 15 years, they're still kind of throwing him under the fucking train, you know what I mean, or under the bus. Like, okay, well, that was the reason I think that the Beaver, because the Beaver was kind of a flop. Like, it cost like $22 million to make, and I think it only made like 11 million, and that's 22 before advertising and everything. So it might have been 32 or something like that.
I had no idea. Now Mel Gibson holds a political office.
Does he?
He's literally, Donald Trump appointed him to be the advisor for I'm not kidding. It's the.
He didn't bring that up on the last podcast he was on.
He's like the political advisor for Hollywood. It's some new made up kind of silly thing. I don't know why it exists.
Well, if that just brings Mel Gibson back to like being in starring roles again, I am all down for it.
He was on the news the other day talking about his home that burned down and all this kind of crap. And
well, we don't want Mel to go home hungry tonight.
No. Yeah, so special ambassador to Hollywood, nominee, assuming office, to be determined or to be dated, succeeding no one because the position has just been established. So I thought he was already it. It's that he's been selected to be it. The position's brand new, so it's to be dated. But yeah, special ambassador to Hollywood. I saw that and I'm like, what the hell? Like, what?
Yeah, that's it. I did not know about that. But you know what? As I said, like, let's be honest. Like, who outacts Mel Gibson? I can't really think of anybody who outacts Mel Gibson. There's some people that are like on par. Who?
Coffin Joe.
Coffin Joe. They said Dolph Lundgren. I was like, okay. I love Dolph. We all
apparently
know
Dolph Lundgren's like super smart.
No, yeah, he's literally, he has like a BA in like nuclear science or something like that, or an MA.
I think he's got a master's in nuclear science or something like that.
Yeah, no, dude, he's got like a lot of stuff. He's got that. He's of course a black belt like karate champion or kickboxing or whatever the heck he's. I think it's karate actually.
Yeah, well, so
and then he's a movie star. And then the thing is for the longest time, like when everybody else was kind of like putting out maybe one movie a year, Dolph was still putting out like 4 movies a year.
No,
pretty much all European movies. His
Punisher movie.
That's a great one, 89. You know, I mean, like, you got to kind of take it for what it is because it is like such an early days. Like, he's not wearing the Punisher shirt or anything like that, which is kind of like a bummer. But I look at it and go, dude, it's 89. I'm not going to complain. Like, it's so early days, you know, Marvel cinema that, like, you know, I'm just grateful for what it is. And it is pretty badass.
I got to watch that one. And I have to watch the Ray Stevenson one, too.
That's a good one, too. That one's the best one, probably. The Punisher Warzone. Mm-hmm. It's so brutal, so violent. I know we talked about it before on the podcast, but, yeah, and the Dolph Lundgren, when it starts off, he's in like a sewer, like Ninja Turtle style, and for some reason he's just naked, kneeling down. You know what I mean?
Maybe he was praying for a good, vibrant future for Mel Gibson.
You know, yeah.
He had the idea that one day he might get a little depressed, say a few things that he didn't mean. You know?
Yeah, that's. Well, it feels like that one. It's just like it's still just it's so weird for people to hold a grudge for like that long. Like, what are you doing?
It's also like I don't know the dude, so I really don't care.
I don't care. I just want to see Mel Gibson do great movies. Like
exactly.
If he gets drunk and shouts some shit out, like he got drunk. Who hasn't shouted some stupid shit out like at that point? You know what I mean? It's just, if you're taking that at like a serious level, like you got some other issues going on.
Yeah, but no, it's definitely a movie I was glad to rewatch for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and this roundabout way of getting back to the Beaver and Mel Gibson.
In all seriousness, like it's not a movie to, I would say, take lightly. It's one of those things where, like, I guess sometimes you might feel if you love movies like you and I do, it's one of those things where like we're experienced moviegoers, so you know. Go in there, no big deal. We'll get through this okay. You might get a little feels or whatnot, but you know, it's like, all right, we made it through because we're men.
You've seen a lot of movies. You know? Seen a lot of movies in my day.
But I mean, like,
I don't get fazed by much anymore. Guy with puppet, I can believe that. I got that suspension of disbelief real dialed in.
But yeah, like, but it's one to. Not be taken lightly because it is pretty thought provoking, but no, just an excellent film. Hilarious, more hilarious than it should be. And if you don't find it hilarious, pull the stick out of your ass. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be one of Mel Gibson's funniest movies. I'm trying to think of a movie that I think's funnier that Mel Gibson has done. Mel Gibson's always good at making suicide funny. I don't know why, but.
Oh man. Well, his character was Riggs. I think?
And Lethal Weapon was suicidal too. And then all of a sudden, he got a new friend and somebody else to cook for him, and it all worked out.
Tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like Mel Gibson would have been a perfect Wolverine.
Yeah, I think he could have been actually a pretty good one. You know what I mean?
Because Riggs is, to me, like Riggs reminded me a lot of Wolverine.
Yeah, because he's kind of just a little bit shorter, but he's still built well.
Which is a nutcase, not that Wolverine's always crazy, but when Riggs decided to be crazy, like in a fight or something, it's like very animalistic and crazy.
No, exactly. I literally just watched through the whole Lethal Weapon 1 through 4 not too long ago.
I thought they were coming out with a new one, but
they're supposed to be. I almost want to say Mel Gibson even said that on one of the last podcasts I heard him, is that he was mentioning that there's Richard Donner, he said, but that no matter what, he wants us to still go through with Lethal Weapon 5. The thing is, it's just him and Danny Glover are getting pretty darn old. Not saying that they can't.
I was just thinking, I had to think for a minute, I'm like, is Danny Glover even still alive?
Well, that's Danny Glover's at least 10 years probably older than Mel Gibson. They make it out in the movie. I don't think he's as ridiculously old. In the movie, they make it out like he's 15 or 20 years older than him, it feels like, but I really don't. I think he's only 10 years maybe older than Mel Gibson.
Yeah, I don't know.
I could be wrong, but I fucking love Danny Glover. He's if he's in a movie, I get so excited. Have you ever seen Gone Fishing before with him and Joe Pesci?
No.
Dude, it's so good. It's like one of those mid 90s comedies where it's just, in a sense, Danny Glover and Joe Pesci, and they're just two old buddies, and they're gonna go fishing come hell or high water, and a bunch of shit just gets in the way, and nothing seems to work out. But it's so much fun.
That does sound pretty good. I do like Joe Pesci a lot too. I haven't seen him in anything in years.
Yeah, I know he hasn't been in stuff in a while either, and if he has, I don't know what the heck it's been, but yeah, it's that one. But yeah, The Beaver, I think in a roundabout way, go see it. It's definitely not a movie for you. You can't just show it to anybody, but if you really like if you really like cinema,
it's a serious film.
Yeah, if you like that kind of dramedy, that's what I would still kind of call it. It's a mixed match of drama. But then, the comedy is there. Let's be honest. Jodie Foster knew what she was doing. She was making some good comedy.
Yeah.
Even the part where they get back together and whatnot, and they're in bed, and then the Beaver wraps his head around her. He's like, "Hello, love." No.
I love how when he's sleeping, the Beaver also breathes and snores.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. There's just there's stuff in there. It's how is that not funny? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
it's fucking hilarious. But yeah, I'm gonna say that I think this might be the funniest Mel Gibson movie out there. There's other good ones, of course, but this is definitely takes the cake.
Patriot, that's a laugh a minute.
Patriot's great.
Laugh so hard I shit.
That's just when you just need to feel some American freedom.
Especially when both of his sons are dead. My God,
dude, he's so pissed.
Hilarious.
Takes on Tappington. Burn the church, Captain. There is no honor in this. Burn the church, Captain.
No.
But yeah, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it all up with. I don't want to keep you. I know you got a couple hours ahead of me as far as the future's going, but yeah, till then we'll find something else. But we had a good old time going back with The Beaver, Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster. Classic movie from 2011. Go out there, spend some money on it if you can. It still needs money, I feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It only made half as much as it really needed.
It needs
probably
at least
needs a
a cult following.
Yeah, that's what it definitely needs to feel like. It needs to be that, But if you like that kind of mid-2000s, 2010s, I guess you'd say, that sort of indie feel, that Hollywood indie feel, I guess that's the best way to sort of say it.
Yeah.
This movie kind of has that same charm that a lot of other movies
just Hollywood indie, just like Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little indie film right there. Good old John Carpenter, Kurt Russell. But yeah. beyond all that good stuff, I'll put the links to all the extra podcasts, comic books, and all that other fun stuff in the description below, as well as you got Dave's poetry book,
thank you.
Barnes & Noble and everything like that. I know I put a link in the last one. I'll try to make sure to put it in this one.
I'll have a copy here one of these days. I got to order some more. I'll actually be able to show it again. But yeah,
I got it down there. I have to get up, though. So.
Yeah, you showed it in the last one.
You know how getting up is sometimes.
Yeah, I don't like to do it.
If I don't, yeah, it sounds like a lot of effort. But yeah, till then, take care, and we'll see you some other time.